The Bridgwater and Taunton Canal starts here at Newtown Lock, where it joins Bridgwater's historic floating harbour. The early history of the canal is such a complex story of surveying, Acts of Parliament and rivalry with the River Taunton that it's a wonder it ever got started at all. Once through Bridgwater, the canal moves into open countryside, although for a while we remain within audible distance of the M5. Wildlife can be found all along it. If you're really fortunate, you might come across an otter, or you might see one of these. Water voles love canals. The slow-moving water with its lush banks are a perfect habitat. In 2002, water voles had become extinct in Devon and Cornwall, and in Somerset things were looking pretty grim. But the regeneration of the waterways and control of the mink has brought Britain's fastest declining mammal back from the brink. There were more than a dozen swing bridges across the canal to allow access to nearby farms, with this one here at Crossways being the first in more ways than one. It's the first swing bridge along the route from Bridgwater. It's also the first to be rebuilt after the Second World War. The canal formed part of the Taunton Stop Line, a 44-mile long stretch along rivers and canals from the Bristol to English channels. The road bridges were mined and the swing bridges replaced with fixed wooden structures, both of which could be quickly demolished should the enemy invade. This bridge was rebuilt to the original design, complete with the retaining mechanism. Other bridges weren't so lucky, as we shall see later on. As the length of the canal was relatively short, the barges that were used did not have live-in accommodation. Boatmen and their families lived in cottages near the canal. Some families worked the canal through successive generations. One family in particular, the Meads family, lived here. The Boat and Anchor pub was built on the site of the Meads buildings, the cottages where the family lived. You couldn't ask for a more picturesque spot in which to enjoy a meal. Or perhaps some liquid refreshment. Marvellous. The canal may not have been the most successful business venture, but it can claim to have been built without any fatalities, which is a feat in itself. The cottages may no longer be here, but at least the family will never be forgotten, as they named the swing bridge after them. Every so often, the peace of the canal is disturbed by the sound of a passing train. On the whole, the railway runs parallel to the canal, utilising the same level ground, but with a speed and efficiency that quickly spelled the end of the canal as a commercial enterprise. The replacement of the third swing bridge here at Fordgate took place a year ahead of schedule. The usual procedure was to erect a temporary road bridge, while the old structure was removed and replaced with a new swing bridge that could take the weight of modern vehicles. Since the work took place in December, the farmer agreed to go without vehicle access to his fields on the far side, saving both time and money. There's a car park here, which is convenient for local fishermen. There's even a platform for the disabled angler. Just up here is another relic from the canal's wartime role. These pillboxes were built to accommodate a few men with Lewis guns and rifles, and they were placed roughly a fifth of a mile apart along the canal, although not all of them are as in good condition as this one. The reeds along the canal bank are a great place to spot reed warblers during the summer months. They are generally heard rather than seen as they sing from within the reeds, rather than from up on a branch. Individual birds are a little tricky to locate, and just as hard to keep track of as they dash about among the reed stems. The most time-consuming job from the canal company's point of view was the construction of the 4 central locks. They were built in pairs using 2 different contractors. It has been estimated that it required 250,000 bricks for each lock. So for all 4 locks, well, I'll leave you to do the maths on that one. This grey wagtail is taking a break from catching flies by the lock gate. Apart from sleeping, preening appears to be the only other time they stay in one place. This bird lacks the black bib that is characteristic of the male, so it would seem that King's Lock does in fact have a queen. The canal ceased trading in 1907 and wasn't fully reopened as a recreational venture until 1994. In between, it survived 50 years in the hands of the railway and 2 world wars. When you first arrive at this point in the canal, you'd think this is the site of an abandoned lock because of the height. In actual fact, it's the site of an abandoned swing bridge, connecting that field there with the one behind me. Although it was obviously disused by the Second World War, otherwise they would never got away with building a dirty great pillbox just there. Actually, as pillboxes go, this is one of the better models. At various points along the canal, you come across these strange-looking objects. They form part of a scale model of our solar system that was opened in 1997 with the sun at the centre of the canal and the planets radiating out from there. As well as offering an unusual educational opportunity, they also make a great place to soak up the sun. Well, at least this common data seems to think so. As we approach Cox Hill Bridge, we encounter one of the more modern uses of the canal.
Change.
British Canoe Union membership entitles you to paddle along the majority of waterways in Britain and provides a more unique way of exploring this canal. This metal plate is known as a rubbing strip, but there's a much better example of it on the other side of the bridge. Considering how old this is, it's in really good condition. If you look very closely, you can see the grooves where the ropes would have gone through. They would have took the horse over the top of the bridge and then pulled the barge through with ropes, rather like this. Between Cox Hill and Bankland Lane bridges, the canal swings out eastward in a large arc, taking it well out of sight of Maunsell House, as requested by the owner of the day. There's a certain irony to the fact that today a canal-side view is desired rather than avoided. This peaceful stretch is dotted with moorhens. The adults are easily identified by their red beaks. They're an extremely relaxing bird to watch as they paddle up and down looking for suitable bits of greenery. Or in the case of this bird, it's time for a quick bath. Their Latin name actually means green-legged little hen, and you can just about make out their leg colour on this bird. Of course, wildlife watching wouldn't have been on the minds of the men employed to dig out the canal. These hard-working navvies would travel from one canal build to the next. But unlike the canal itself, they didn't suffer from the coming of the railway, as they helped to build that too. As the canal swings back round, we pass the remains of a pedestrian swing bridge, before catching sight of the road bridge near Lower Maunsell Lock. Just before the bridge there are some private moorings, along with some visitors' moorings. The private moorings are owned by the Somerset Navigators Boat Club, but it's still necessary to purchase a boat licence from the British Waterways in order to use the canal. Otter sightings are quite common in this area, so you never know, if we stick around long enough we might just get to see one. Oh yes! I did hear of an otter that swam along the canal, climbed the safety ladder, ran along the towpath and dropped down into the canal again. What I wouldn't have given to seen that. Just beyond the bridge is Lower Maunsell Lock, from where the first short pleasure trips took place in 1988. Must have been quite a contrast from the original cargoes of coal, bricks, tiles, grain and so on. By 1993, British Waterways had produced its leisure and tourism plan. Part of this included facilities for parking, with Maunsell being provided with its own large car park and picnic area.